Alright, welcome back to the channel. My name is Angel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Palantir technologies. Alright, let's get into the video. Palantir is a publicly traded American software company that specializes in big data. Headquartered out of Denver, Colorado, and founded by Peter Thiel, Nathan Gettings, John Longsdale, Stephen Cohen, and Alex Karp back in 2003. Fun fact, the company name is derived from the Lord of the Rings, where the magical Palantir is a seeing stone described as a ball of crystal that allows users to see events in other parts of the world. Bet you didn't know that. As we know, Palantir is a software company that specializes in providing big data analysis software, and how they do that is their two platforms. One being Gotham, which is centered around data defense and intelligence sectors, and the other being Foundry, a commercial solution. Both of these platforms are intended to be vertically integrated solutions that handle the entire data lifecycle, from raw data processing all the way up to the highest level of decision making in any organization. So, since these two platforms, Foundry and Gotham, are designed to be vertically integrated software solutions, they're intended also to be a operating system for the intended organization, whether that be government or commercial use. Both of these platforms have user-facing software suites with design solutions specific for that sector and industry. Because of the vertically integrated nature of both Foundry and Gotham, it allows users of varying technical ability to effectively integrate and collaborate with both platforms. So Palantir's market opportunities. So Palantir estimates that their total addressable market is around $119 billion. That number excludes institutions in regions or countries in which they won't do business in. So how's this number split between the commercial and government space? Palantir estimates that their TAM for the commercial space is around $56 billion, while their TAM for the government space is around $66 billion. Palantir's software engineers are on the front lines, meaning those software engineers are busy learning, building, and distributing software solutions that their competitors aren't willing to solve. And more on that shortly. Palantir's software platforms deliver multi-cloud economics, even for air-gapped or disconnected customers, meaning that Palantir's software platforms are cloud agnostic, meaning they can be deployed on AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Compute, or any other third-party platform, or even deployed in-house. Palantir's business is designed to expand within an organization and across sectors, meaning that Palantir's software platforms are designed for customers to build and integrate entirely new solutions on top of the platform, thus vastly increasing the value that either Foundry or Gotham provides to the given customer, whether that be commercial or government use. Palantir has chosen sides, meaning that Palantir's software and services will only be provided to the United States and her allies across the world. Palantir's capital structure. Due to Palantir's unique capital structure and their F-class shares that allow their founders up to 49.999% voting control of the company, thus ensuring that the company maintains its founding principles of providing software to protect and serve countries abroad in liberal democracies. Unlike their competitors, such as Amazon, Google, where there have been protests against controversial government contracts, Palantir has a unique position in that their founders can push through the controversial issues behind developing such software. Palantir's executive management team, consisting of Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, and Stephen Cohen. Stanford-educated Peter Thiel briefly spent time as a lawyer before founding Confinity, which later merged into X.com, which eventually became PayPal. Peter Thiel also wrote the first check for Facebook, along with investing in companies such as Airbnb, Spotify, and Stripe. Alex Karp, unlike most tech CEOs, was neither an engineer nor an MBA. And in fact, before becoming the CEO of Palantir, Karp had never worked at a tech company before. Karp befriended Thiel in Stanford Law School, and upon graduating, Karp received an inheritance from his grandfather. He was successful enough with that inheritance that he started his own wealth management firm in which he worked with wealthy European families. Stephen Cohen, president and co-founder, a Bay Area native and a Stanford computer science graduate, appears to be more of a run-of-the-mill tech executive, more than Peter Thiel and Alex Karp. However, Cohen has worked closely with Thiel since the beginning of his career and embraces a lot of the same perspectives as Thiel. In fact, Cohen actually helped develop the first prototype for Palantir and has since then worked at scaling and growing the product. In fact, Cohen earned the nickname Mr. 2 Weeks from the CIA from his ability to quickly turn around the product and release. Cohen is a key essential part of the management team in executing both Karp and Thiel's vision for Palantir as a company. Alright, so let's look at a discounted cash flow model that I created. Keep in mind it's very rudimentary and very conservative. And as always, I recommend you do your own research because these numbers could be completely off. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is solely for entertainment purposes only. But let's dive into the numbers and see what we can see. All right, so let's look at this DCF. All right, so as you can see, the last 3 years, filing years, were pulled from their 10K, the 2018, 2019, 2020 periods. As you can see in 2018, the top line revenue was $595 million versus 2020's top line revenue was about $1 billion. And you can see the huge jump of about 47% year-to-year growth from 2019 and 2020, which most likely had something to do with the pandemic and the increase in government spending. In addition to that, most likely some of the maturing clients that had high capital costs to acquire and to integrate, probably lessening because they need less support and they're getting accustomed to the either platforms that they're using, whether it's Foundry or Gotham. And as we continue on to the 2020 year, obviously those numbers haven't been reported yet, but these are based off of some assumptions and growth. You could see that I predicted a very conservative growth since of that surge we saw due to the pandemic, a 34% year-over-year growth in revenue. It's pretty conservative for a tech company and the market that Palantir is in addition to a slight surge for the next 3 years up until 2024, where up until 2025, where we see a decrease down to 30% growth and then tapering off down to 15% growth up until 2032. That date was just an arbitrary date that I picked, just out of curiosity's sake, because we want a longer reporting period for this DCF. And one of the more interesting things you want to note, something that may be refined in a future video, if you guys want a more refined DCF approach. Again, always do your own research. This is a very rudimentary model. Do not depend on this to make financial decisions. Always do your own research or seek out the best information. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. But as you can see, the cost of goods sold has increased at almost a linear fashion in comparison to the top line revenue. However, that may not be the most accurate depiction of what may happen here with Palantir. Again, due to their business model is that high capital cost of acquiring the customer and then entrenching their technology and then allowing the customers to build on top of the platform, thus making it more of a service than a consultancy that it kind of has the appearance of. thus drastically reducing the cost of goods sold as customers mature on in the life cycle of the actual product. So interesting to note, I have the discount rate at 8%, which is not ultra conservative, nor is it overly optimistic in terms of potential performance of Palantir. And you can see that the target price is around $80, which is a 225% change over the current approximate share price at the time of filming this video, about $24. And so overall, Palantir looks like it has an optimistic future, and I guess only time will tell, but this is why we're making this video. All right, let's move on to the next thing. Risk factors. All right, let's talk about some of the risk factors. So one of the more apparent risk factors that Palantir has is the ever-increasing operating expenses. They may never go down. Acquiring new customers may create a infinite loop of demands on the platform, ever-changing. And another risk factor parallel to that would be unsustainable revenue growth. They may not be able to maintain the same growth they've seen in the last 19 years since the inception of the company, which will drastically impact the valuation of the company. Yet another risk factor is the long sales cycles. The company could invest huge amounts of time and capital and resources trying to woo a customer and fail to acquire that customer, causing huge issues when it comes to revenue growth. Another risk factor is unfavorable media and social media coverage of Palantir. For example, the controversial ICE contracts that Amazon and Google had pulled out of may cause big backlash to Palantir, thus dramatically impacting future contracts, current revenues, and the overall potential of the company. Another risk factor would be data breach. This is not a risk factor that is unusual for a software company, but if there's a data breach within either the Palantir platforms or third-party services that the client or customers depend on to deploy Palantir software platforms, may be breached, thus causing negative PR and potential revenue loss due to that breach. The final risk factor was also a competitive advantage, that being the F-class, which gives the founders a huge level of control over the company, no matter how many shares are outstanding, which could be a pro or a con depending on the direction the company's heading. And it's something to take note of. All right, so what's the verdict? So overall, Palantir has a rock-solid management team, a rock-solid product, and high barriers to entry. Not only does it have high barriers to entry, but not a lot of people want to compete, as we saw with Amazon and Google pulling out of their controversial contracts. And overall, the product makes sense. It's creating something that is vertically integrated, an operating system for business and government that solves very difficult problems, such as sourcing and processing data at high levels. And it's a very interesting niche. And as a software engineer, I know the high costs of switching from one platform to another. So it's a very ingenious approach to get businesses really hooked on their product, because they build tooling and infrastructure on top of their platforms. Overall, I think that Palantir is something that you should definitely look into adding into your portfolio. But again, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, and always do your own research. But overall, I think Palantir is something that you should definitely put your eyes on. Do your own research, as always. But if you found this video helpful, leave a comment down below. Did I underestimate something? Did I overestimate something? Is there something that I overlooked? And again, if you guys really enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video, because I definitely will be posting more frequently. But anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.